And I think that's it, really. Sit back, relax, and we're going to jump into some Irish ballads here. So the first tune we're going to work on today is Danny Boy. And even if we don't get to another tune, I think this one's worth spending an entire session on because it's a deceptively simple tune, but it's those tunes that are the hardest to play because there's not a lot for us to hide behind rhythmically, melodically. We can't just aggressively strum our way through a measure and be like, oh, nobody saw that. I don't think anybody saw that. With a ballad, you're sort of way out there. And so this is a great opportunity to take a look at some techniques for playing Danny Boy and also keeping the sustain going for as long as possible. So go ahead and have that out and read through. Now I'm going to be playing this from memory. There are a few little things I do differently here and there. We'll talk about those things and we'll get a closer look at the tablature. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and play Danny Boy as I would typically perform it. And then we'll go from there. While we're going through here, though, I would like to point out one area, and I want you all to be focusing on this real hard when we get to this point. And that is going to be right here. Here it is. So I'm going to do a little markup here. Okay. I want you to be paying attention to measure 25 and measure 26. Arguably, I think the most important part of this tune, and you really want to make sure that you don't biff it. I'll share why in a little bit. But do pay attention to measures 25 and measures 26, and we'll talk about that when I come back from this. Here we go. This is going completely off paper now. All right, there is Danny Boy, and I wanted you to focus on measures 25 and measures 26. That is the emotional high point of the tune. And the reason I wanted to highlight that in particular is take a look at the notes that we're playing there and what we have to do to get from measure 25 to measure 26. At the very, very end of measure 25, you'll see that we have a 4 on the melody string. And the very next thing that we end up playing melody-wise is a 9. We have got some boogieing to do in less than a beat to get from 4 to 9. And you don't want to overshoot that, because the very first time I played this tune was at an Irish pub called O'Doherty's in St. Cloud, Florida. And it wasn't in my repertoire, and there was a big Irish party there, and they were like, hey, can you play Danny Boy? And I thought, I've never tried, but it's an easy song. And once you internalize a song and you're familiar enough with your instrument and where the notes or chords are, you could pretty much figure out simple tunes like Danny Boy. So on the fly, I decided I'll go ahead and I'll play them some Danny Boy. Well, having played I'm from County Derry on clarinet in high school, embedded this song in my head. And so I went ahead and started playing it like I'd always played it all my life. Until that measure, because I misjudged the interval between the A and the C sharp. So man, when I got there, or the F sharp rather, man, when I got there, I overshot it. I went, boom, just shot right past it. And I went, oh, dear Lord, what have I done? I looked up real quick. Nobody looked. Nobody said anything. I'm like, and they tipped well, so apparently I didn't kill it for them too badly. But all it took was one time, and I made a mental Post-it note in my head. 4 to 9. 4 to 9. And I've never missed it since. I don't want that to happen to you. So please, please keep that in mind. Figure out what finger you're going to use on that melody string. And when we get to it, we're going to go through the whole piece. But when we get to that, just remember that all you have to do is get from the A here, and then get up here, and then you can piece in the other part of your chord. But make this your priority. Get that F sharp in there, and then worry about everything else. Even if you never hit everything else, just make sure you don't miss that note. All right, let's go to the beginning of the piece. We'll talk about the intro, the outro, some of the other stuff I'm doing rhythmically. Excuse me. But right now, let's go ahead and take a look at the piece, bare bones. This is somewhat arranged, and it does have some elements of this Irish tune from Kerry symphonic arrangement, and we'll talk through that here in a little bit. Starting off, we are in 4/4 time. We're in the key of D, D-A-D tuning. And our pickup notes are those first 3 quarter notes. So we have a rest, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Bum, 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 bum. So the first thing is it's very difficult with the mountain dulcimer with 3 strings, to maintain a nice sustain. Whenever you take your finger off the string, we start getting chop. A melody's beautifully moving along, and then suddenly we have to change a hand position. And those notes stop sustaining because we have to take our finger off the string to move them around. And that's where choppiness comes into place. And choppiness is the ultimate enemy of the mountain dulcimer player. And the challenge here is to figure out how to keep our fingers on the same string for as long as possible, so that those notes, instead of ending up chopped off when we move the finger, those notes end up bumping into each other legato or slurred style. That gives us a more full feel. We only have 3 strings to work with. So even if we can have just one note at all time sustaining, that'll give us cover to replace the finger someplace else. As long as we can keep at least one string ringing is the rule that I tend to go by. So this first thing, in the first measure, we've got 2 on the middle string, which is C sharp, And then on the melody string, we have got D. C sharp and D are a half step apart. It's a minor second interval. It is dissonant, but I like to start this tune with that because it is such a heartbreaking song. It lets us know that there's heartbreak coming, to have a bit of dissonance. So I like to keep my finger down on that two, not too closely, because if I play both at the same time, right off the bat, it's really jarring of a dissonance. But if I come in slow, it's not as bad, but still there's a hint of that dissonance, and I think that's great because we hear a lot of dissonance in mountain dulcimer music, and it's a color that we can use to our advantage, especially in a tune like Danny Boy. So here's a good example. Instead of going like this, I don't want to let go of that two. I want to hold on to it so it continues to sustain while I bring in the melody string. And then I slide from 1 into 2. That's not written down there, but I like to do a little slide there. Okay. Also not written down in here, but for those of 1.5 fret, when you come over and play the downbeat of measure 3, we have got that 2 on the melody string, and I've got it stacked as a simple 0-0-2 chord. If you take your index finger and place it on the 1.5 fret and get that C, we'll get a D7 chord. It's really nice if you can manage to make that work in there. It's a nice transition. But from there, you do have to hold on to that C, and the next part of this is going up to 5. That might be a hard stretch if you're trying to hold on to that C on the middle string at the 1.5 fret. So it's your call on that. I love bringing that 7 in there, so I don't mind being a little uncomfortable for a bit. Not to mention that with the thumb moving up, you've got a good stretch there. So give it a try if you've got the 1.5. It sounds pretty cool. Down to 2, and then this 301 A7 basically. Notice I'm using my ring finger on the 1. Take the ring finger up off the 1, pick it, and then put the ring finger down on the 1 on the middle string. Now I want this sustain on the 3 on the bass string and on the 1 on the middle string. I want to hold those while I play 3 notes in measure 5. So let me show you how that works with the sustain. Hear how those strings are still sustaining and providing a nice comfy bed for that melody to walk over the top of. That's exactly what I'm talking about with a tune like this, is if you don't have to move those fingers off of there, even though your music says hold that whole note or that half note for 2 beats, it's tied to a quarter note, hold it for 3 beats, there's no saying you got to then take your fingers off those strings, because as soon as you do, those notes are going to stop and it's going to sound choppy. There's a lot of stopping and starting of notes going on there, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So if you don't have to move the fingers in order to maintain the grip or the fretting that you're doing, hold them down as long as you possibly can until you absolutely need to move it somewhere else. All right, so I'm going to go again from the beginning. I'm going to go past that point, get into measure 6, and then take a look at measure 8. Measure 8 basically is just a 101 chord that I'll be arpeggiating through to provide some movement. There is a melody note on the melody string, and then once we hit it, we can come on back and just arpeggiate through that measure. But all we're doing there is arpeggiating through the 101 A chord from the top. 3. And then I got hung up for a second because I wanted to look at measure 7 real quick. Take a look at my fingering for this as I come in. From the 5 down into a F sharp minor, 2-2-4, L-shaped chord. Next melody note is 2. We're already barring that. And if you're not, I bar all my L-shaped chords. The reason being is so many times, more often than not, when we're playing an L-shaped chord, the melody continues to move and makes its way down to the note that's on the melody string where your first 2 fingers are for the L. So I've learned to just bar that. It's a trick that's held over from playing in 1-5-5 tuning, C, G, G, and DAA. So all you have to do if the melody does go there is just pick your thumb up. And that finger is already there. So in this case, going from 2-2-4 to 2 is as easy as playing your L shape, then picking your thumb up and plucking melody again. Less pulling fingers back and forth. You don't have to quickly shove that ring finger in there, or if you bar your chords like this, you don't have to shove the pinky in there very quickly. It's already there. From here we're going to a 2-1-0 B minor chord. The index finger already there. We're not going to be touching anything on the melody string, so all I need to do is kind of pivot my index finger to allow this finger to get down to the first fret on the middle string. And the thumb is not away where it can come in and grab that 2 on the melody string. So watch this in slow motion. And I actually use my ring finger on the middle string. Sometimes if I'm going slow to demonstrate, it's easy to use whatever finger's right there, but when I play it more up to speed, the necessity for that reach lets me know that I actually need to be going for the ring finger. Pivot. Thumb at 2. Then we get into our 101. Now look at this configuration right here. Thumb and index finger at the 2nd fret, right opposite each other. It's very simple to then pull your ring finger up off that middle string at the 1st fret and just slide that whole configuration down to your A. And then you can begin your arpeggiation. So I'm going to put that all together coming from measure 6. 1, 2, 3. I play that 2 as an 8th note, but you get the idea. We're going to come down here. Don't get too hung up on which direction to go. That is not canon. The melodies needs to be at the 1 for sure, but don't get hung up on that. So maybe instead of a 101, you want to play a 4-2-1. Some people love that chord. As long as the melody is there, you can replace it and do something different. But don't worry about which direction to go with the arpeggios. Just know you're going to be doing the rest of the measure until you get into measure 9. That's where that melody begins to come active again. I'll do that one more time from measure 6. Measure 10. Again, I'm putting a D7 in there. Into measure 13. Now notice here I'm holding on to this 301, or this 3-1 now, 3-1-0, and it's tied to this 2 in the middle. I want to once again hold on to those as long as possible, so I do finger twister. I dump my thumb in there and grab that 2. I don't want to let go of that 3. I don't want to let go of that 1 because it's still sustaining. It's giving me a nice little bed to float on. So I'm going to use my thumb to get in there and grab that 2. It's going to feel lousy the first time you do it, and there are other ways to do it, I'm sure, but hit it once. O's already available. Then Ring finger's busy. I bring my pinky in to hit the 1. Again, very briefly, and then the thumb is ready to go at 2. It's hiding. You can see it right there. It's going to come in there on 2. I can let go of everything else. Whew. Measure 14 is like, oh my goodness. I was trapped in a bad twister pattern and now everything is fine. 3, measure 15. From here, all I need to do is put my middle finger down and I'll end up with a bar all the way across. So what I'll do is I drop my middle finger down and get that 1. My thumb is hovering right above the 2nd fret, easy enough to come in, lay that down. And then either you can move your thumb up to 3 as I have written in measure 16, or you can just strum open because the melody note at 3 is the same as the melody open on melody. The reason I like to slide up is because I get that little lilt if I slide from 2 to 3. So it's up to you. It's either a matter of convenience or it's a matter of, hey, I like that sound, I'll use that. There are some options as far as that's concerned. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to play through those first measures all the way from the beginning to measure 16, and then I'm going to open it up for questions in the first part of the tune. All right. Here we go, from the beginning. Two, three. 2, 3. I used different fingers that time, but... And that takes us to measure number 16. Let's go ahead and open it up for questions. And anything that any observations, any questions, make sure you use the participants link to raise your hand. And then we'll have you unmute yourself and see what's going on.